Joy just sent me a text that said we forgot to get the tomatoes out of the freezer. I asked Brielle to be my camera girl. She says, why don't you have Brenna be your camera girl? Everybody's really happy to be doing this YouTube thing. Super excited they are. I don't think I can lift that with one hand. So, I think I'm gonna pause it and get Brielle to give me a little bit of help, maybe. I decided to bring it upstairs by myself. And I let Brielle know that I'm super thankful. And she said, you're welcome. Anyways, this is the tote. I don't know how many quarts it is. But this is the frozen puree. And I'll let that sit. I'm blocking the camera with the hand. I'm gonna set that on the counter overnight and hopefully it thaws out. Good morning, everybody. It is Sunday the 22nd, I believe. Is that the date? All right, it's the Lord's Day. We're getting ready to have service with Joy's cousin Ed on Facebook Live. Is that how they do it? They're streaming it. We're not that savvy yet, so we're learning. Anyways, we are having a breakfast. We're going to do breakfast. In our area, one of the great places to eat breakfast would be Cartwright's Maple Tree Inn in the Birdsville / Short Track area. I don't know what their address is considered. But they make their own syrup and they have an old family recipe of buckwheat pancakes. And when you walk in, they're putting like 60, 70 pancakes on one griddle and they've got wrist braces on and they're flipping those things like crazy. And they've got hundreds of people in there waiting on the next stack of pancakes. All you can eat, and they're great. They're homemade syrup on the table. And one of the places that they get their meat from, or maybe the only place they get their meat from, I don't know if they get their bacon there too, but they get their ham and sausage from Wilson Beef Farms. And so we actually have some Wilson Beef Farm sausage patties, breakfast sausage patties, and we have some Cartwright's Maple Tree Inn pancake mix. Joy's whispering it to me because she don't want to talk. So, it's in here somewhere. She's going to have to show me where it is. Oh. Over to the right, she says. Where? Oh, up top. I don't know where stuff is in here yet now that she's rearranged it. So this is Cartwright's Maple Tree Inn. Original buckwheat pancake since 1963. And their address is actually Angelica, New York. Which I guess I'm not surprised. They have a website, cartwrightsmapletreeinn.com. And we're going to have some of this. And the sausage right here, which I don't have a Wilson Beef Farms address on the packaging because we have it in a Ziploc bag. I'm sure there's one around here somewhere. They do our venison products, our sausage and hot dogs and kielbasa and Italian sausage. A little bit of everything. They do smoked products, they do snack sticks. They're a really good place to get your meat from, and they're really clean and very quick turnaround. I was too slow. Joy's flipping. Oh, baby. They are looking good. The sausage has been flipped. I missed that too. And here's some New York pure maple syrup. Forgot to give these guys a shout out. Harvey's Maple Spout right here in Canisteraga, New York. It's good stuff. That's where you go. We have some Cartwright syrup too, but these are our local people here, right in town. Brenna's serving up the sausage. Oh yeah. Put one on your mom's plate too. Thank you. Brielle's already got hers because she's not messing around. And we're set up, getting ready to do some live streaming.
Why is it warm?
Because your mom likes it warm.
So she warmed it.
Alright. Okay. Hopefully everybody enjoys their delicious breakfast and Sunday service. We're getting started in production of the spaghetti sauce. I'm going to show you the first piece of this after you've gotten your tomatoes, you've harvested them, and you've collected all your other ingredients. The first thing that we do is we puree the tomatoes. We use a thing, it's kind of, there's another one called the Squeezo, but ours is called the, I don't know what that is, Cucina Pro. This is the box. We actually bought ours at Agway, I think, in Dansville. And it has 4 different size strainers on it. This one, I think, each of them have a label on them. This one says berry. This one is tomatoes and apples. This one is for pumpkin. Oops. And this one is for salsa. And it works well. Actually, we used that one for strawberries, and it gave our strawberry jelly kind of a little bit bigger chunks. And Joy likes to use Roma tomatoes for her spaghetti sauce. So we just got a small pint of them, and I'm going to cut them up and show you how this thing works. The way you assemble the vegetable strainer is take this shaft, it has an O-ring on it, and a little clip. Put the spring on the shaft, place it in the hole in the back. The screw goes inside the strainer, which is has the tomato holes in it, and it has a rubber gasket to keep it from leaking. Place this inside here onto the shaft, and there's ears on there that it screws onto, and then you take the set screw and tighten it up to keep it from going anywhere. This handle fits in the back. That's what I say anyways. There we go. And then you crank this. It looks like it makes a little bit of noise. Then you take this chute here. It's bigger on one side than the other. It slides right on top. And you clip this on there like that. That allows your fruit to escape, and this separates the seeds and the skins of the tomato. They come out the end, and the usable portions come out the side. So you put this bowl here, and you take this other bowl on the end. The nice thing about this is that you don't have to boil the tomatoes or do anything with the stems or seeds or anything, because it does it all for you. You used to have to blanch them and get the skins off and then use other ways. This does it all for you. So we have the seeds and the skin all right there, and the puree is over here. Oops. And it's all just good, usable product. No seeds in your spaghetti sauce. Some people like it that way. We do not. On to the next part.
Hi guys, I am prepping things for the sauce that we're making today. I am working on some ingredients and getting them chopped up. I also have jars in the dishwasher, so you're going to hear that going right now. And our dog is being very good under the table and chewing a bone, so you might hear that too. But for the most part, I'm going to be working on chopping these onions. One of the best ways that I've found is using this handy dandy chopper. I got it through Pampered Chef, which is a direct sales company. My eyes are going to be watering. I have had them sliced for a little while, but I know that one tip is if you cool them ahead of time, either pop them in the freezer or pop them in the refrigerator. That's one way that will take down that burning that will come from the onion to your eyes and cause you to bawl the whole time you're cutting onions. So right now I'm just chopping them. My family does not like big chunks, so I tend to mince them a lot. And as they cook over time, they just kind of melt away into the sauce, helping it flavor it even better, and it just hides those vegetables in the sauce for them. I am measuring tomato puree that we had in our freezer into roasters. This is what we use when we're making the sauce, and we add paste to it. I had actually pureed the tomatoes about 1.5 years ago. We had gotten more tomatoes than we anticipated and ran out of time as far as getting all of the sauce processed. And so I've been doing it in portions, and this is the last little bit in the freezer that we have. So right now I'm just measuring it, putting it into roasters, and starting to add the other ingredients to the sauce. This tote actually holds about, I would say about 1/2 bushel of tomatoes. The recipe that I follow calls for 1/2 bushel of tomatoes. And I think that possibly I have a little bit more, but we're gonna go with 1/2 bushel for today. But the recipe that I use, I will put in the comments or the link, or however Jason wants me to do it. I will have it ready for you. I don't know if anybody else really enjoys canning. It is definitely a labor of love. It's something that is a lot of hard work. But when we started canning more than we had been earlier in our marriage, it was mainly because we wanted to know what we were eating. And we knew the ingredients that we put in. We knew that they were good ingredients. And also I have an intolerance to milk. And some spaghetti sauces have cheeses in them and milk. And this is one way of us knowing that there's no milk in it. And my daughter is also lactose intolerant. So we're all done chopping the onions. That was interesting. I don't think you wanted to watch any of that. I could barely see what I was doing at one point. I have used in the past swimming goggles, which helps tremendously and keeps the burning to a minimum, and it's a lot safer, but I didn't do that this time. Probably should have. But we still need to chop the garlic and add the rest of the ingredients. Right now I'm just adding the paste to the puree a little bit at a time. I usually use a specific brand. Last time I made sauce, I used this large industrial size can, and I was pleasantly surprised. So it's a lot easier than opening a ton of smaller cans when you're making a large batch. So I figured, why not just switch and use one big can. So that's what we're doing right now, and we're gonna let this mix a little bit, and then we'll add the other ingredients. I have them equally portioned right now, but I do at one point like to taste before I start canning, which is why I'm not going to tell you what measurements I have at this moment, because it could change before the end of the process. Okay, so we just finished adding the paste to the puree. I have the roasters right now at 250. We have a little bit of puree ice cube floating around, just trying to get the rest of the frozen bits mixed in, and we're going to start adding the other ingredients to it. We have the onions diced, minced, I guess you could say. we still need to go through and chop up the garlic. Some people might like to run it through a mincer. I particularly don't like to do it in the sauce. I feel like it gives a different flavor to the sauce if you just chop it. Almost like an infused taste. So we're going to go ahead and chop this and add oregano, basil, canning salt, sugar, and olive oil. We use the canning salt when we're canning in the recipe because if you're using a table salt, it's iodized, and iodized in canning can change or alter the color of the product that's in your jar, which might make it look just unappealing, and it can also change how long that it is preserved for. So you want to use a canning salt when you're using ingredients for canning. And some people might not want to have sugar in their spaghetti sauce. I particularly like it because it takes down the acid in the sauce, the tomato. And then as far as the olive oil goes, I use a pure olive oil, not an extra virgin, mainly because the pure gives it a good flavor, and also it should be used when you're making sauces. Alright, so we're just going to add the rest of the ingredients now that the paste has worked its magic. And one thing we haven't discussed is the type of tomatoes that we've used in the puree. There's different types of tomatoes, obviously, but when you're making sauce, you really want to stick to a paste tomato. Roma tomatoes, the specific type that we use is called San Marzanos. I like the flavor of them. It gives a very distinct flavor, but for me, it just tastes more Italian. And there's a specific roadside stand, whatever you want to call it, that does a pick your own tomato, and they have San Marzanos there. And this specific batch, we also had some Amish paste tomatoes that were mixed in with it just to try them out. And I think that they were pretty good tomatoes as well. But a majority of it is the San Marzanos. One ingredient that I forgot about, because you don't really measure, you just add it to taste, is pepper. And I'm going to go with a white pepper today. It has a less bite than ground black that you would normally use on the table. And that was oregano that I just added, and now I'm adding basil. And now I'm adding the salt, the sugar, and once I get this all in here, we'll stir it up really good, just to make sure there's no clumping. And we're going to give it a good stir, and then we will go ahead and add the olive oil after. When you're stirring, you want to make sure you wipe the sides, you're hitting the bottom. Otherwise, over time, it will start to burn. Every now and then, that does happen to us. It gives a little bit of a charred taste. As long as you don't have too much of it. You really don't want that in your sauce. You want all good ingredients, everything cooked properly. The last thing is the olive oil. And that will not change the measurement. That is half a pint that we're putting in each roaster. So Jason already thinks that one of the roasters is a little thicker than the other. And we'll keep an eye on that as they're simmering. It happens. So in the past, what I've done is just taken some out of one roaster and mixed them. And then the consistency gets better. But the key is definitely letting them simmer for a few hours and just keeping an eye on them, stirring them, scraping the bottom, scraping the sides. And then once they get to the consistency that we like, we should be able to stand a wooden spoon into the center of the roaster. That'll give us an idea, and then we'll sample it with some garlic bread. So it's been about 5 hours, and we were checking in on the sauce. There's a couple things that we checked for. This specific roaster is pretty well done. If you see the wooden spoon is standing up, it's pretty thick. When I check the other roaster, it's still pretty runny. It has some consistency on the bottom, but it needs some more time to simmer. So a couple things we could do. We could just go ahead and start canning the thicker one and while the other one cooks down, or we could try and mix them, but that might take longer. I don't know if you can tell, but it's getting darker in our kitchen, so things are taking a little bit longer than we had anticipated. So in the meantime, I've been trying to get some other things prepped. So the next phase that we're going to be heading into is the jarring of the sauce. And I have a pot going on the stove that is for our lids. I usually keep just enough in there to be ready for the next canner. That way I'm not overfilling the pot and they're just getting prepared. I always keep a kettle on the stove also for hot water. That's just in case that my canner is running low and I need to add more hot water to it. So there's a couple things I do. The other thing is I warm my jars in the oven. I started out cold and put it on 225. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. And those jars are going to get warm for about 20 minutes, and then we'll start jarring the sauce into them. I have one other tip for you. We have hard water at our house, and if we don't add vinegar, it will cause a residue on the outside of the jars. So if you would add about 3 tablespoons of white vinegar to your water, that would take care of that residue that can accumulate on your jars while they're processing. Alright, so we're going to start jarring the sauce, and it's important that you always put warm liquid in warm jars. You don't ever want to... Alright, we are going to start jarring the sauce. And it's important that you put warm sauce in warm jars. Anytime you're canning and you're doing the hot water method, you want to make sure that everything is warm. If you have anything that's cold, if your jars are cold and you put warm sauce in them and then put them in hot water, your jars will break. And that's very frustrating. We've done that before, not on purpose, but we don't want that to happen again. So we are going to start jarring the sauce. They're very hot. I don't know why I always do that, but I try to grab the jar not thinking. You're going to want to leave about 1 inch headspace at the top. That allows for no seepage and proper sealing. And once we get the jar filled, I'll wipe the jar with a damp cloth around the rim. And I've already gone around the rims after they were washed in the washer, just to make sure that there weren't any chips in the jar to avoid breakage again, or not sealing. The lids are still warm, but they don't have to be hot once you put them on the jar. I just realized I missed a step. So we're going to take the lid back off. I forgot to run a a knife around the inside of the jar just to make sure there's no bubbles, because bubbles too can cause a jar to break. You're just going to run it around the outside of the jar, and it causes any bubbles that were in here to float to the top. I wish I could show you one, but I just had one on the other side. And just so I make sure I didn't get anything on the jar, wipe it again. Some people might think that that's just over the top, but trust me, you don't ever want to lose just even one jar. And then you're going to set it in the pot on the rack and fill your jars and just keep lining the rack. Once you put the lid and the ring on the jar, you're not going to tighten all the way. You're just going to hand tighten a little bit. And if you feel like you've tightened it too much, you can back up just a half of a twist. We're going to put the last jar in and then lower it into the water. And when you put your jars in, you probably shouldn't have them touch. Keep them apart as much as possible. I didn't have my water on because if you have your water rolling boil and it's too hot, you can still risk your jars breaking. And we'll go ahead and process these for 15 to 20 minutes at a rolling boil. So we won't start the timer until then. Alright, our 15 minutes is up and we are now going to take all of the jars out of the canner. And because we have stone countertops, it's cold, so I prefer to keep a towel down just as a precaution. So as I take them out, you might hear them pop, and that just means that we did everything right. And the jars will seal as they start to cool. I usually work my way around the rack just so everything doesn't fall. Oh, did you hear that? One sealed. And there's the second one. There's the third one. We have a few more batches to do, and then we'll be done. Might be up a little bit later than planned, but that's okay. I hope you enjoyed the video. Maybe this is a little motivator for you to start some canning, or maybe you've been doing it for a while and you just like to watch somebody else and their techniques. I'm sure I've left a few things out, but this was something that Jason wanted me to do for a long time and a little bit out of my comfort zone, but I can say that it was a fun time. We've had a good time today, and I hope that you enjoyed watching the video. And just continue to watch because I'm sure you're going to enjoy the rest of it. Have a good night, and God bless.
Thanks everybody for watching. I know it's probably a long one. We haven't edited it yet, but if you got to the end, congratulations, but there's more to come. We're deciding to put the outtakes at the end for those of you that decide to stick around for the full thing. You know, Joy does a great job in the kitchen. She puts her heart and soul into it. She really loves canning, and she's really progressed since we were first married and we were burning water together. But her food's amazing and she does a great job. If anybody ever has a question, she has no hesitation to show them how to do it or to try to learn how to do something new. You guys can handle this, guys or ladies. It's something that both of us do. I do a lot of the venison canning, and it's one of those things, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So you can handle this. It might look like it's overwhelming, but the proof is in the pudding. You get the great spaghetti sauce at the end, and you're proud every time you pop open a new jar. So I just want to thank her for all her hard work that she does. Thank you guys for watching, and hopefully we continue to bring you stuff that you're interested in. We love you. God bless. We'll see you next time. So, Joy's going to be working on the tomatoes tomorrow, and for the tomato sauce,
Chuck Norris.
Who's Chuck Norris, she says. I don't know what's going on in this world. Maybe Brielle's been under a rock.
Yep.
Anyways, the meme said, what did it say, Brielle? Chuck Norris came in contact with the coronavirus. The virus has been quarantined for 14 days. It's a good one. All right, back to breakfast. You're fine. Get it out. We can edit all the beginning of the video. We just can't edit in the middle. Ready?
Right. Say pause or something or stop.
I'm gonna put the whole thing in there.
No, you're not. Well, first of all, my eyes are watering.
Okay.
So I'm using the puree from our freezer. Actually, we had processed this through our vegetable strainer about 1.5 years ago and put it in totes and put it in the freezer. We had, I believe, got more than we had. I'm gonna have to edit that out.
I can't.
My daughter is also lactose intolerant. I'm not counting. Okay, it's been about 5 hours and we're checking in on the sauce. We've been stirring it about every 20 to 30 minutes. And one of the roasters is actually a lot thicker, and partly because one roaster's holding more than the other. And yep, that's that. Hi.
Oh. That's not it. You're supposed to say.
So.
You're supposed to say. So.
So.
No. Turn it back. Okay, gotta give it a second.
What am I gonna say?
Whatever you want to say. But it's still recording, so this is gonna be a good outtake.
Oh, I thought you stopped.
I can't work with this woman!
Well, you should have said, at ease, soldier.
You're like... Okay. What's going on with this place? Oh, it was the record.